the room, and welcome, comrades, and thank you so much for joining. I'm going to be handing over to our chair in a second, who is Vula. So cool. Vula, you can take it away.
Thank you, Kia. Comrades, you are most welcome to this discussion on disaster capitalism that is held on the framework of the annual Southern African People's Solidarity Network, which is an alternative space for people to grapple and engage with the problems facing the region. While waiting for other comrades to join, we are going to start with two solidarity videos from rural women assembly from Malawi and from Swaziland.
For those for whom I'm supposed to put into the or you're busy with something?
Yeah, I'm just pretty busy. No problem.
Kia, it seems that we cannot hear you.
Can you hear me now? Apologies for that.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I was just saying that we're facing some major technical difficulties. So I was hoping if you could just take us through the discussion rather, because the things that we wanted to stream didn't want to go through. Apologies, comrades.
Okay, thank you very much, Kia. Comrades, welcome again for those who has just joined us. I am Vula from the Research and Support Center for Development Alternatives Indian Ocean, which is based in Madagascar. In our discussion today, we will focus on the latest shock that hit the people in the Southern African region. Indeed, we were all shocked by the recent event in Mauritius, where about 1,000 tons of fuel have been spilled and endangering corals, fish, and other marine life that some scientists have called the country's worst ecological disaster, if it's not the world's worst ecological disaster. To let you know that the Wakashio vessel was en route to Brazil from China to fight iron ore from a port owned by the notorious mining company Vale. After 2 weeks of incompetent Mauritian government inaction and denial, and a lack of action by Mitsui, the waves pounded the ship so hard that it began to crack. Here's where much of these 1,000 tons of bunkerful oil was leaking. Maybe, I don't know, Kia, do we have to show our faces and say hi to all our participants before we go on?
I think that'd be cool, just so that we know like who's in the room with us, and so that we'll just be acquainted with each other.
Okay, thank you, Kia. I've seen Marcia. Hi, Marcia. Welcome. You are muted, actually, Marcia.
Yes.
Here we are.
Hi, Jeff Davies in Cork Bay.
Hello, Geoffrey. Thank you. I saw Patrick as well.
Greetings, comrades. It's Patrick with you in Melville in Johannesburg. See you soon.
Hello, Patrick. Welcome. Hello, Ronel. I saw you as well. Stefan.
Yeah. Hello, good morning. It's Stefan from Mauritius. Good to
Hello,
be here with you.
Welcome. Okay, maybe we should go on. We will have a three-part discussion today. First, Desmond D'Sa from South Durban Community Environmental Alliance will talk about the extractivism and the blue economy. Actually, Desmond D'Sa coordinates the South Durban Community Environmental Alliance and is the winner of the 2014 Goldman Environmental Prize for his activism around environmental justice in South Durban. Then we will have activists, I guess it will be Stefan from Rezistans Alternative, who would provide an on-site and up-to-date view of a situation in Mauritius. This is a Mauritian eco-socialist movement that opposes all forms of corruption, that defends the rights of nature, the rights of workers, and that fights for a better world where there is more social justice and where human rights are respected. And finally, we'll have Professor Patrick Bond, who will close the session by placing this disaster in the broader ecological crisis of disaster capitalism. Professor Patrick Bond is working at the University of the Western Cape School of Government and specializes in political economy, geopolitics, political ecology, social mobilization, state-society relations, and public policy. But first of all, let me introduce Kia Sipato, who is going to contextualize the series of discussions for us. Kia.
Hi, comrades. Thanks again for joining. So the series of conversations, of course, is called No to Corporate Capture and Yes to the Right to Say No. And it's a four-part discussion, which of course starts out today with the disaster capitalism, and then just a little bit later this afternoon we'll be looking at the African Climate Justice Coalition coming through, looking at tackling and dealing with the climate crisis in the time of COVID-19. After that, we'll be having a conversation which is around towards a UN binding treaty on business and human rights. And tomorrow we'll be ending off with, of course, the discussion around no to the corporate capture of agriculture. The main theme and the thrust of the discussion is actually the part around yes to the right to say no. I think comrades will see that from each and every point, or from each and every form of discussion, we'll be looking at resistance, the challenges that comrades are facing, and in particular how we're demanding a different kind of development path than the current mode of accumulation that exists, which is basically an extractive mode of accumulation, taking from the soil, taking from people, displacing sort of nature in itself. And we're going to be discussing and delving in deeper on how we're thinking of framing that resistance, how that resistance looks like, and really looking at debunking and displacing corporate power as a whole. And so that's kind of the general thrust of all the conversations. But over and above that, I think these four-part conversations will be looking at how are we thoroughly going to be supporting and strengthening movements in the region and in the African continent. I think the current context has brought to the fore that we're going to be needing to challenge the current paradigm that exists. And the only way in order to challenge the current paradigm is actually to build and strengthen people's power. So throughout this discussion series, it is important for us to keep at the back of our minds that as much as we're outlining and contextualizing the things that we're facing, we're going to need to also thoroughly hold hands together and see how we're going to tackle these issues through, one would say, a people-to-people solidarity. That's it from my side, and thank you so much, comrades, for joining.
Thank you, Kia, for this overview, and thank you for your usual communicative enthusiasm. So immediately, let's hear from Desmond on the extractivism and the blue economy.
So good afternoon, everyone. I'm not sure what's the time in other parts of the countries, but good afternoon. And 10 minutes won't give me much time, so I'm just going to go straight and say to people, if you want to know more about the oil and gas campaigns, just get to our website and you can find a lot of stuff else. You can always drop me an email and I'll send you the stuff. The website is, and I'll put it on later on the chat group. So you know that capitalism has been floundering and almost collapsing all the last couple of years. And living in the shadow of the petrochemical and chemical industry in Durban gives us an insight of the atrocities and all the destruction that the oil and fossil fuel industry brings upon us. So that's been going on for 25 years, and we've monitored them, we've documented them, but more importantly, we've challenged them. Also challenging government is very critical. And building, as you say, building a huge amount, mobilizing the communities to come together and work together. So we've, in KZN, in the province, in the city, we've done that through various means of bringing like-minded organizations to work together on this issue. So the system is collapsing. It's collapsed. I would say it's collapsed completely, because when you look at, and we need to kick it even deeper. If you look at COVID, what has happened is that it has shown that we can survive without the system. We need to get rid of it. The current system has to be completely dismantled. And it's what we've been calling for through corporate social responsibility, to hold corporations accountable. During COVID, we saw that that despite the fact that the corporations collapsed and workers lost their jobs and people suffered the most, that the corporations were kept, were supported, and this is happening in a whole lot of ways in South Africa, but it's also happening in other parts of the world. We were amazed with the amount of clean air we were able to breathe during the COVID, during level 5 and 4. With all the petrochemical and chemical industry completely stopped during this period. You will bear in mind that we have the 2 big crude oil refineries in Durban, but also one in Cape Town and one in Sasolburg, and we have the coal refineries in the Highveld of Mpumalanga. But we also have the biggest chemical storage facilities in Africa, in Durban. So all this came to a complete stop. We could see for miles. We could breathe in fresh air. We saw that people were not coughing at all. Can you imagine the beauty that we had in all the fresh air we were breathing in. That happened during COVID until April, when they moved down to level 3 and got the industry to reopen. And then all hell broke loose. The refinery started to blow up. People were coughing, people were affected. And a huge amount of effort to fight them. But just the other part is that so that fight is still continuing, and that we've well documented. It's all over. You can get us on Facebook, you can get us on the website, as I said, in regard to all the explosions during COVID. And we write that story up. So we'll give you, when we are finished with that story about COVID and our experience, we'll send it to everybody, share it with everyone. But On the oil and gas, we pushed back against ExxonMobil. We stopped them completely. Coming to Durban, and Patrick Bond was on the call here with me, will know how we dealt with ExxonMobil in Durban. They left a rusted bucket and tried to get away with it, and came back now in the new of oil and gas exploration in the ocean. And we challenged them, fought them, took them on, and they disappeared. In fact, they recalled the guy who was from Texas, and he owned one shell to frack his land, but he was quite adamant that he'll explore for oil and gas on our coastline, and we said no way. And then came Sasol and the Italians, ENI, and working with comrades in Africa and Nigeria and other parts of, and Mozambique and other parts of the continent through oil change. We were able to put together a comprehensive team, and we can share those comments, and we also stopped them in their tracks as well. We went to the AGM last year and we created havoc in the AGM, Sasol's AGM, and we also got comrades in Italy to create havoc in Eni's AGM, the Italian Oil Corporation. We've had lots of spills. We've had ships breaking up. In Richards Bay, one of the coal ships broke up just outside the harbor. We've had a ship run aground in the harbor in Durban, all the containers, and spill all their stuff, those noodles onto our beaches and all over. So there's been a lot of oil spillages over the years, which we've documented very well. We know the devastation of the oil industry. And recently now we've taken on Sasol. So while we have this COVID and we can't have big meetings, we organize in the communities. And during this COVID period, we had a big fight about the fishermen not allowed to fish. So we won that battle with the government. And so Total is here, and on Friday we're launching the onslaught on Total. Total is also very closely linked to the Sasol, the South African Oil Corporation. So Total is French, Sasol is South African, and they've got a joint venture in Durban around the storage facilities. And about a month and a half ago, the storage facilities blew up in the harbor. Also, they've got huge storage tanks here in South Durban, where those tanks have been leaking all over under the ground into the mangroves and into the beaches and our streams in the area. And that we've taken on Sasol and as well as Total for. So Total is on the radar. We are preparing something. I'm already on radio this morning all over talking about Total. They'll announce it tomorrow. I'm on Al Jazeera regarding the Total exploration to explore for more oil and gas and amend the EIA in the Western Cape around Mossel Bay and all those areas. But it's a huge lunge, and the blue economy. So it started with the blue economy and what we call Operation Pakisa. Operation Pakisa means hurry up, get it done now. Let's drill and let's destroy everything else and drill for oil and gas. And what they haven't considered is the resolve of the people in South Africa. We've got thousands of fishermen on the coastline. But more importantly, this Operation Pakistan, the blue economy, was supposed to benefit South Africa, but in fact, it's a lie. It's the worst kind of deceit. And what it does is take away, steal the resources from ordinary people on our coastline that live, that eke out a livelihood from the ocean, take home the fish, and put food on the table. This is what Operation Pakisa is. It was started by the former president of South Africa, Jacob Zuma, who himself was paid millions of rands in his pocket. And so the whole notion of the blue economy is theft. The whole notion of the blue economy is stealing from the ordinary people. The whole notion of the blue economy is destruction. So we don't support that at all. We support the informal economy of ordinary people that have been doing it from time immemorial, from our forefathers. So that's why we oppose the whole notion of the blue economy, because it's something that's been dreamed of, something that's been developed as to take away, to mine in the ocean for sand, to explore for oil and gas, to kill off marine resources, to destroy the jobs that we currently have. Climate jobs are millions. We have a lot of people making a living all along our coastline. I've walked the coastline of KZN for 3 solid years. I've seen small little fish shops. I've seen small little businesses thriving and lots of people employed. The oil and gas business will only employ 5 people, and it's skill, and it doesn't provide anything else. We'll be the slaves of the oil and gas industry because we'll be washing their clothing and ironing for them and cooking for them. That's not a job then. So we don't want to be slaves anymore. We are free. The minds are free, people are free, and they want to own everything. They don't want to be what they've started many years ago to be destroyed. So we don't agree on the blue economy because it takes us away from the ordinary man on the street. It takes it away from the people that use the beaches. Remember, our people for years have been using the beaches as a healthy water. The seawater is very healthy for our people. But also, what it does is also creates opportunities for our people all along the coast, which wasn't there before. And thousands of our people have come out in support to stand up and say they won't allow the ocean to be destroyed. So the blue economy was done by consultants together with their masters, the corporations, to develop an idea that they can create job opportunities in the ocean. In fact, what they didn't consider is the tides, the waves, and all that's rising, and the water warming. They never considered the climate, in other words. And we've got some atrocious tides on this coast where we've had many shipwrecks over the years. We've had many oil spills over the years. Many pipelines that are in the ocean are spilling the oil all over the shore. So they're bringing back that, and that will be much more devastating. We've already seen it on the land. We've seen it in Nigeria, in the Niger Delta, where I've been there as often as I could have gone there and seen, and things haven't been changed, and their cleanup takes years, and they haven't even cleaned that up. After Ken Saro-Wiwa was assassinated, those companies, Shell and them, have not done a thing to clean up the rivers, the oceans, the land, where they've destroyed it, and oil is thick in the soil. How are they going to be able to deal with the problems that we'll have on this atrocious coastline, where many shipwrecks have taken place? But what's crucial for us is that they don't even have a plan. This is just about greed and about greedy and getting people to get more money into their pockets. It's about enriching those elites who have destroyed all over the world, where wars have been created because of their rush and thirst for oil. We can't allow that to happen again. We can't allow that to happen on our coastline and on our country. Country belongs to all. Not even the president has a final say on this matter. The people of this country want to ensure that we have sustainable jobs, and it'll never come through fossil fuel. It'll never come through drilling and mining and oil. It'll only come through ensuring that we protect what we have, ensuring that we put the climate first, ensuring that we put the land first, ensuring that we put our water resources, our precious water resources first, and use that to galvanize, to provide food, to ensure that we reduce hunger. So that's where it is, and I'm absolutely sure that we will continue to fight by linking up throughout the continent. So those that want to join must join through, well, we all know Lumobasi and others. Let us form a powerful force on this continent. Let us share the knowledge. Let us work together. Let us provide solidarity, because that's critical. By working together, we can push off. We can push Total back. We can push any other company, including the shipping industry that's destroying our coastline. I think there's a lot for us to share and a lot for us to learn. So we can learn from one another. That's what I'm trying to say. We don't know it all, but we can put our voices behind everything, because that's critical, that's important. And for too long, fossil fuel industry has got away with it. And there's more rush for Africa because their resources are being depleted. People in other parts of the world are fighting them like hell. We can't be silent and allow them to come here and destroy. We have to be vocal, day in and day out. Every part of our body must be energized fight these people, even at the expense of ourselves. We must not fear the oil giants. We need to say enough is enough and no more. We don't need oil. Let us look at the alternatives. The alternatives are not harmful. The alternatives are cheap. The alternatives are accessible. The alternatives will create jobs. The oil and gas and the destruction and disasters that they create all over the world can be stopped, and only can be stopped by people. A people united will never be defeated, and that's what we need. So I'll leave it there, and I'll take more questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Desmond, for such an instructive and so powerful sharing and presentation. Now, comrades, just to let you know that at the end of the whole session, we will have the opportunity to have some discussions and comments if required. Let me just tell you that and welcome Ashok, who is here with you now. And I take the opportunity to already ask the comrades from Rezistans Alternative from Mauritius to go on to their presentation. Ashok, Stefan.
Yeah, I think let me just call Ashok to make sure that, are you hearing me?
We're hearing you, but Ashok's sound isn't joined. He's joined, but not with the sound.
Okay, I'll just check on him because he wanted to speak. I can do so, but just cross check with him. Okay, sorry for that. Yeah, I just spoke to Ashok. So I'll be introducing, and then if ever he can come and he'll add on to what I'll be saying, if that's okay for you, Vola.
Okay, go ahead, Stefan. Thank you.
Good. Okay, so thank you again for having us here. I won't be going into the facts. I think that you've given a good overview, Vola, about the facts. I'll just start from where we are right now. So and then I'll be speaking about the mobilization. I think that in this critical time that we are living today, we need also to look for spaces of strength and hope for our movement, and I will be speaking more on that aspect. So just to to give an insight of where we are right now. The vessel Wakashio is split now in two pieces. So we are like waiting for my last information that there's still like some 30 tons of oil that is in part of a tank that we are waiting to spill out now in the lagoon. And the last information as well is that it would be a real challenge for the kind of spilling that we are having, because the oil, they are like in pellets, and they are kind of really diffused in the sea, and it's more like pernicious, and it will be like a real hard work to get those oil out of the sea, out of the coastline. And we are talking about one of the most preserved part of the coastal lagoon of Mauritius, because there's a lot of stress over the coastline of all around the island. And but places like Maibo and some southern part of the island, there are places where there are no resorts and hotels, so less marine activities. So most highly conserved places. And the place that we are talking, it's there are a lot of highly sensitive ecological areas there. So there are Ramsar sites, there are important wetlands. There are maybe some comrades have been to the Îles Island once when we had the School of Ecology. There's a small island where there's major conservative work being done there. So there are endemic species there that are now under serious threats. So this is what we are talking about, and that's from the ecological or environmental perspective. But then there are also all the livelihood, because most of the people from this region, they depend on the sea. Might it be from fishing, might it be from nautic activities, might it be from tourist activities, might it be from different activities that are linked to the sea. So we are talking about livelihood of those people that are now being severely under threat. The last information that we have as well is that they're now planning to sink the bow, which is like the most important part of the vessel that has been broken in two. So they are planning to sink it at some 14.8 kilometers away from the shore, and in some 2,000 meters down in the sea. And we are just having informations that this might be an important place where the whales come to reproduce themselves. But since the beginning till now, people have been really critical of the government way of being totally opaque, not transparent in their decision. So we are just learning it through the media. We don't know really where that will be, and if ever the information about the whales and things like that, or how far they are true or not. At some point, the state said that because the French government, they are helping in the salvage team. So, and at some point, the government said that whatever they'll be wherever they'll be sinking the part of the vessel, they've done it in discussion with the French. But now the French, they are saying no, they are not involved into that decision. So it gives you an idea of the mess, really the mess here. So there's a lot of pressure on that government now, because there's a lot of gray area about how things happen. At some point, the Prime Minister, who's also the Minister of Interior Security, he said that we did not have the means to deal with that issue. And then we have like 2.3 million kilometers of EEZ, economic maritime zone, sorry. And and we are having like I don't know how many fishing agreements with countries. We don't know how many vessels are fishing in our seas, and yet when you have a prime minister telling you that no, we don't have the means to deal with one vessel coming in our lagoon, which should not have been here, because that vessel was coming from China and was on his way to Brazil. And 2 days before it wrecked on our reef, so it wrecked on the 25th of July. 2 days before, it changed trajectory, and it came where it wrecked now. And some of the crazy explanation that came from our government is that the people from the vessel, they were looking for Wi-Fi, so that's totally out of sense. So this is basically for the facts. Sorry, I might be missing some of them. But then I think that the important thing for us is what we did as a political party, because we've had a lot of discussion about to draw the line in between what we call prefigurative politics and classical, I would say, if I can say so, politics. But what happened is when we had the oil spilling started on the 6th of August, we just like worked on a prototype of a boom that could be of low technology, of low cost, and that could be collectively owned, and that could get people into movement. So at night it was like 11 p.m. on that day, on the 6th of August. We went to the waterfront and we looked for sugarcane straw. We looked for security net that you usually use in construction. There are those green nets. And we looked for needles and things like that. And we started to work on one prototype. And so we were like 8 of us. And we made sure that whatever we were doing was being documented. So we made live videos on the social media. And then we have like 3 people from the region that just came around and asked us about what we were doing, and we explained to them, and they joined. So and we put the first prototype in the water. So now we are on the 7th of August, like 3 a.m. So we went in the freezing water. It was really cold. And we put the first prototype of our boom, which was around 25 meters long. And there were already people boaters that tried to put different booms so that they already had, but which was not appropriate for oil spill. And those people, they had the news that we were doing that. So they came on the waterfront at 4 a.m. and they told us where to put the first one. And we tried it and it worked. And the fact that we documented it, the fact that it was low technology, the fact that it was like open technology, because we showed all the aspects of production, and made that at 7 a.m. there were people that started to come on the waterfront. So people from the region, because people wanted to get into movement. But the way that the system works, it was like they won't get people involved into that. So it would have been something that would have been taken over by the government solely, or by private companies, that the way that they used to deal with those kind of catastrophe. But the fact that we started to do what we did, and that it worked, and it was validated by boaters that know the sea, made that people came all the day on Friday, and we started to confectionate those booms. And then we made sure that at every step, there was a collective ownership of the learning process, how to do those booms. So we always, like in the process, people were working in binomes. So we made sure that someone that learned before will teach someone else, and it grew up like that. It grew up like that. And at some point, we even had the oligarchs from the sugar industry who said that, yeah, we are seeing that you're using the sugarcane straws, because they are the ones that have the straws in their sugarcane fields. So they came up with lorries with all the straws, and they dropped it on the waterfront. And if you look at Friday the 7th of August till the 9th of August, which is a Sunday, we had over like 20,000 people that came on the waterfront confectioning the booms. And the interesting thing about it is the way that we put the movement, because it is now a movement, and the movement is going over and above the confection and the making of the booms. The way we put the things made that the system, the capitalist system, they got grip, because then the oligarchs, because they have the interest in the lagoon as well because of their resorts, so they made their workers get into movement. But the fact that we involve a lot of people, they needed to like open their spaces for volunteers to come to their place to do those booms. And it was something that was done out of any kind of, I would say, money or finance economy, because people just came, and people who own, for example, shops selling those nets, they just gave those nets. So people were just giving a lot of things. People came to give food to the volunteers. I've been there like for 2 weeks. I did not spend a cent buying something to eat, because people just came just to support the voluntary work that took place there. So and we were just at some point reflecting that if we did not give this alternative, if we did not give that possibility of getting into movement the way that we did it, we would have ended today with a major corporate or someone close to the government that would have had a contract of I don't know how many millions to do those booms, because this was what we needed at that time to contain those oil spill. And for the COVID, for example, we've seen the same way that the government acted in terms of opacity, in terms of unitarianism, and which did not involve people in decision making, which did not give that kind of collective ownership. And now we are witnessing that there's many scandals linked to contracts that was given to private companies or people close to the government about instrument or things that we needed for the COVID. So these things would have been the same for the Wakashio crisis now. So what we are and for us is we are having this oil spill, and it's breaking the heart of many people, because I mean people, they are really linked to the ocean. They are really, there's a strong tie between people and the sea. And sorry, I'm a little bit emotional. Yeah, and but on the other side, we are seeing how the strength of when people get together. I mean, we really can make it, you know. But we need to, in the movement, we need to also look at this aspect of giving hope and showing the strength and have our history. You know, we need to have this ownership of this kind of things, because what we've experienced now, and this is where we are heading now, is people are really angry about this government, but not only this government. People are now being more conscious about there's a systemic problem. The problem is systemic, and it's not about this government or another government, because we know now that any government that would have been here, they would have done the same that the actual has been doing, because the way that we've witnessed erosion of the capacity of people to challenge projects that are detrimental to the environment, this has taken place like for more than 10 years now. And this is the doing of the different successive governments that we are having. So it's a systemic problem. It's not only a problem of that government or other government. And now we are heading, for example, for mass mobilization, because we had a demonstration on the 11th of July, and we had like some 10,000 people on the street. And we've already announced before the oil spill. We already announced the Act 2 of the first mobilization, and then we just had the oil spill, and now we are engaging people again into an assembly for deciding on what kind of popular mobilization we want to have. So, and this is going to be on the assembly will be on the 22nd of August. Yeah, I think there's really a lot of things to say. I just hope that I did not went out of the way. But so I think that it would be better to respond to any questions or perspective afterwards. So, and just to say that I think the interesting thing, and I will end on that, is so far I think in Mauritius, this is what happened is has put the level of consciousness in terms of ecology at the point that it never happened before. We are involved in the beach grabbing, we are involved in different things, but what just happened is putting the level of consciousness high, and really high. Now, for example, people are questioning about the petroleum industry, because at some point there's a plan from the government of having a petroleum hub near the port sector in Port Louis. So now people are questioning that, and I think that the next level for us as activists, as militant, as part of a global movement as well, is how do we insert what happened, all those energy into a global campaign against the petroleum industry, against the fossil fuel industry, and things like that. So I think that this is where we are right now. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Stefan. Once again, despite the situation, I cannot even find the words how to describe it. I wanted to use this opportunity to congratulate you, comrades, for the strong mobilization work and all actions you have led in response to this disaster. Now, comrades, we are reaching out our last but not least presentation. Let's invite Professor Patrick Bond to close the session by talking about the broader ecological crisis of disaster capitalism as announced. So, Professor, the floor is yours.
Thank you, dear comrades. I can, I hope, assume that it is working, and I am going to just quickly run through what disaster capitalism plus what is critical for us, that is deglobalization, might mean. Can I assume, comrades, that the slides are there, because I can't go through a presentation without the dreaded PowerPoints. So I'm assuming that you're also seeing me and seeing these slides. It's clear. Okay. So the mandate was just to quickly sum up where disaster capitalism as a concept is, and why the COVID-19 pre-existing condition, in other words, the weakness of our global capitalist political ecology, has to be put onto the agenda, because we are within SADC. Mauritius, a great report from Des from South Durban, shown us that the carbon addicted and export oriented capitalism, because although Mauritius wasn't exporting anything on the Wakashio, it was a ship that was going to take Vale, the second biggest mining house in the world, to take its iron ore from Brazil to China. And we know very well from Mozambique that Vale is one of the most destructive companies in the world. And there's a big international network of our allies that are it's fighting Vale on many fronts. So they've issued a solidarity statement with the Rezistans alternatives, comrades. So I'd like to very quickly tell you what I think the campaigning, plus the ideas currently circulating as antidotes to this capitalist pandemic. And they do come in part from Naomi Klein. I'm just going to rush through this because by mistake I left some of the, now I'm going to do this properly. It'll just take 10 seconds. What I'm going to do is to remove all the existing recordings that I've done. I do apologize. So what you get with Naomi Klein, having spent a few weeks in South Africa working on this report, let me just make sure that this is clear narrations on all slides, okay. And what we're getting is a sense that with capitalism in a shock doctrine mode, like the Mauritian comrades are facing, like COVID-19 is giving us, we need to ask for everything to be changed. This needs now for us to get out of the silos, out of the single issue areas and have a broader perspective. And for Naomi, it was disaster capitalism. She even included South Africa in the book, The Shock Doctrine. And this changes everything, and subsequent works really show how these are not punishments, but a kind of gift. The big radical change is needed. I'll conclude with what some of them that she has in mind. They will only come if we are doing exactly what Ashok and Stefan have just been describing. That is local resistance against the kind of despoliation. And we would obviously start with Setsi because both offshore and at the continent's largest refining facility, they're offering great resistance, but so too at Sasolburg, in various other sites, the Karoo and the Drakensberg, where there's anti-fracking. And then, of course, the coal struggles, the export line from Lephalale to Richards Bay, the single biggest project in South Africa at 800 billion rand to export 18 billion tons of coal, where all sorts of struggles. And I see Matthews, so I won't speak anymore because he would be the one to report on all the Makua anti-coal struggles, Messina Mercado, another one, all across the world. As Jean Martinez Ale and the comrades in Barcelona at the ejatlas.org shows. Please keep that in mind, ejatlas.org, so you can identify the companies that you're fighting and how comrades are fighting them all over the world. And new ideas are springing up. Leave the oil in the soil and the coal in the hole. Sumak Kose, Juan Bavir, the rights of... Okay, I see somebody. See Mama? Can you please mute? Thank you, Sissy. Okay, and we have, or maybe she can be muted. Thank you. Claims for ecological debt, environmental liabilities, and what I'll come to quickly now, the ecologically unequal trade, post-extractivism, the food sovereignty of Via Campesina. And that's because we're breaking through planetary boundaries in all of these concepts to stop climate change. To restore biosphere integrity, to regulate biogeochemical flows, and to address land system changes. These are the areas where the planetary boundaries have already been exceeded. Some call this the problem of the Anthropocene, where it's human beings affecting these deep geological and biophysical processes. But it's not the Anthropocene, it's not everybody, is it? It's those of us in the top 10% in the world. I speak for myself too. But also in terms of income or, you know, our platinum cards and SAA Voyager, all those kinds of indicators of the unequal character of who's benefiting. But it's particularly because we're in a capitalist mode of production. So the phrase that is perhaps preferable to Anthropocene, these big changes, would be the Capitalocene, right? These climate tipping points are just extraordinary. And we're seeing many of them in the ocean, what with the Arctic and the Antarctic melting, what with the circulation in the Atlantic slowing down. Of course, there's the Amazon rainforest, we see the coral reefs, lots of indicators of these tipping points now being reached. The sixth mass species extinction, again, the Capitalocene, threatening the kind of species extinction we've only seen on other occasions that has been so catastrophic, including human beings. Here are some of the water-related ecological boundaries. And those of you in Cape Town are fully aware that this became the first major city to really face day zero. The Teesvaartukloof Dam in 2018 looked like this, with a drying up and, of course, a differential access to water in that area, where the vineyards from the winelands were able to continue until the last period. The Mozambicans saw the opposite with Cyclone Idai, Cyclone Kenneth, massive rain that swamped the country. At the same time, other parts of the country were suffering major droughts. I could add here the Durban rain bomb, since Des is on, the 71 people killed in South Durban and the surrounding areas just a little bit after Cyclone Idai in last April because of 168 millimeters of rain. And then we've got these extraordinary extractive industries that continue. As I say, the number one project in the country to take 18 billion tons of coal from Lapalale down to Richards Bay, that continues, right? And notwithstanding if we can do costs and benefits, no time to get into them. We really need to see more solidarity with resistance struggles like the ones that Makua and Wamua and Woman are supporting. I think holding our leaders to account, we've seen at this meeting, the Copenhagen Accord, Jacob Zuma sitting with Lula, Barack Obama, Wen Jiabao, and Manmohan Singh to blow up the United Nations, as Bill McKibben said it, the League of Super Polluters, because they adopted an unambitious, non-binding, no penalty kind of politics, and the Paris Climate Agreement amplifying that, really benefiting basically the West, the US, the EU, Canada, Japan, Australia, Saudi Arabia, plus the BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. That's who's winning. And that's why, if we look at disaster capitalism, the confidence and the arrogance of the elites maybe is summed up best in the mandate from the World Bank chief economist at the time named Lawrence Summers to solve these ecological problems with a capitalist solution. He said, quote, and he wrote this down, I think the economic logic behind dumping a load of toxic waste in the lowest wage country is impeccable, and we should face up to that. Africa is vastly underpolluted, right? The idea that you can have carbon trading or pollution trade, that would be a win-win. You pay some country to be dumped on. And could we have the mic muted, please? Here's the critique from this man who said to Larry Summers, your reasoning is perfectly logical, but totally insane. So if disaster capitalism is addressing it, as this man, Jose Lutzenberger, put it, this would be the unbelievable alienation, reductionist thinking, social ruthlessness, and arrogant ignorance of conventional economists, right? And the World Bank did indeed keep him as vice president, didn't lose credibility. In fact, Summers then was the US finance minister, and he was a Wall Street tycoon, the president of Harvard University, though he was fired for sexism, and Obama's economic czar, and he's now a top advisor to Joe Biden. The man you're seeing there was the Brazilian environmental minister, but he was fired for writing that letter soon thereafter in 1992, just as Brazil was hosting the first Earth Summit. Now, he did admit that he made a mistake. Larry Summers said, I make a whopper, and I didn't mean to suggest as a serious policy recommendation pollution trading, but in fact, that is the policy that has prevailed within disaster capitalism, to take a market problem, the externality of pollution, and solve it with a solution. And in the case of carbon trading, truly it is the privatization of the air supported by men like Al Gore, right? This European Union innovation, European Union has adopted this US innovation and is making it work effectively there. And what happened with these carbon markets is very instructive because they crashed. They were pushed up recently, but then they crashed again. They're just like any financial instrument. As you can see, the green line is the US stock market. It rises, it bubbles, then it crashes down. It's kind of a classic version of what Marx called fictitious capital. Have we got a carbon trading gimmickry going around the world? Indeed we do. South Africa is illustrative because we're preparing a carbon market. It is currently at 43 cents a ton as a carbon tax, so it's absolutely trivial. How trivial? Sweden's is $132 a ton. But this privatization of the air is a very serious danger. Desmond D'Sa can recall a case where the pilot, Sajida Khan, in the Bosasa Road landfill in Durban fought against in 2007 before she died. And it was a complete disaster. I can give anyone the details. But this is covering about 22% of global greenhouse gas emissions. So carbon trading as a disaster capitalist false solution is worth bearing in mind that we have to continue opposing. And that means South Africa's own strategy of introducing a very weak carbon price. You know, as I say, just trivial, tokenistic is worse than nothing at all, really. So just to conclude, what are some of the ideas that we can turn to in resistance? Certainly look at the ecofeminist tradition, where Against the externalization of costs, the solution is not simply to add markets and stir, but instead to demand debts. What are the debts that Ariel Saleh, one of the premier ecofeminists, argues? A social debt between capitalists and workers, the embodied debt that men owe women for family caregiving and social reproduction, the ecological debt that humans owe nature, a post-colonial debt owed by settlers, myself included, but white settler colonial society owes to peasants and indigenous people. Intergenerational debt. I owe certainly my two children a debt for having abused the climate with my carbon footprint, and a species debt between humans and other species, right? So certainly Ariel Saleh's put out arguments for not dealing with market problems through simply market solutions, but by reparations, right? I think we should be taking that on board. This is particularly the case, as we've seen in one idea called environmental justice coming from the racial reparations movements that in particular Robert Bullard has helped to innovate from the early 1980s in the United States, and as Black Lives Matter becomes such a strong echo around the world, I think racial reparations is critical. A last couple of points then. I told you disaster capitalism needs changing, but one of the things that's underway, and it's a pre-existing condition, is deglobalization. What do we mean by it? When did it happen? You can see the date on the Financial Times is July 2019. So it's at least recognized 8 months before COVID-19 hits. Flows of direct investment have fallen. Trade restrictions are rising. The profits from abroad and the corporates are less numerous. And then so COVID-19's blow to world trade is a heavy one, right? The pre-existing conditions have worsened the prognosis because global trade, foreign direct investments, stocks of cross-border bank lending have not returned to their, but watch this 2000 peak. So 2007 to be precise. So this is a serious problem, not simply Donald Trump, the trade war, the tariffs, the WTO sabotage. But if Stefan and Ashok and the Rezistans alternative comrades are trying to halt the kind of terrible trading with one of the world's largest ships, one of the 500 biggest ships in the world, now breaking in half on those coral reefs. There is something to be said for watching these trends in trade, because there is a massive shrinkage similar to the 1880s, 1930s, 1970s. What we've seen since 2007 is a genuine convulsion, and you can read it in this one index called the Baltic Dry Index. You see that vast collapse, 2008. That's the measure of the cost and the speed at which all these containers are going around the world. Des himself will know, because he's leading a campaign against a massive expansion of the Durban port petrochemical complex. And they simply haven't been able to get the number of containers in the Durban harbor up above the 3 million mark. They were hoping for 20 million by 2040. It's just impossible. So all the evidence of trade slumping is before us, even before COVID-19. The value chains that link all the different products around the world economy crashing. They peaked in 2007 at 28.1% of gross output. They're down to 22.5. And I'll conclude now with just some messages from our older comrades who passed, like Walter Rodney, who said, this relationship that Africa has with the imperialist system is the critical reason that African wealth is being drained. Plus, you have to deal with those who manipulate the system, who are agents or unwitting accomplices of the said system. Those are the pro-globalization forces. Even John Maynard Keynes, a bourgeois economist, argued for deglobalization of capital. He said, some things, ideas, knowledge, science, hospitality, travel, should be international, but let goods be homemade whenever it's reasonably and conveniently possible, and make finance national. That's sort of the theme that we've been developing for over 20 years in the critical movements, globalization of people, but the deglobalization of capital. 2 years ago this week, we lost our greatest African political economist, Samir Amin, and he always said in his work called Delinking, we need to break with the international economy. It's time to stop running from the full implications of the crisis, and that is deglobalization plus the end of disaster capitalism. That means changing our energy system to renewables, our transport system, including shipping, Let's change that to local production. Let's change the urban form, our housing and services from hedonistic overconsumption to more socio-ecologically sensitive systems, our agricultural and food systems and production systems, our consumption, disposal, health, education, social and private space. I think that says it all, because Naomi Klein, in putting forward disaster capitalism, is encouraging us to think about a democratic eco-socialism, one sensitive to feminism, to racial justice, and to anti-imperialism. Let's join this debate, comrades. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor, for this enlightening presentation that gave us an in-depth understanding of the broader landscape of crisis. Comrades, we can now exchange on everything that have been shared here. Please raise your hand if you want to take the floor. I would just have to ask you to be short and very clear, please. Comrades, are you all here?
Oh, there we have one hand coming.
Please go ahead.
Thanks everybody for your brilliant presentations. I just wanted to ask Stefan, what is the kind of demands that this movement is being making on the government? Or is there a call for the government to go, and is it a popular call? And what kind of forces are making such a call, if that is the call that's been made?
Yes. So yes, the popular demand now is because of the government's failure, they need to go. And the mainstream political parties in the opposition now, they join that demand because they've asked as well. The leader of the opposition, for example, asked for new election to be held. And what we need to know, the last time we had elections in Mauritius is in November 2019. And this government has been elected with only some 37% of vote expressed in their favor. And there is legal contestation of their election. And this is latent. This is where we are now. So this is one demand, and I think there's a lot of people joining that demand. But then there's a more radical one saying that we don't want anyone from the mainstream politics now, because if any of them would have been here, it would have been the same situation. And I think that we've pushed, Ashok particularly, pushed at some point that we need public excuse from the Prime Minister himself because of his failure for many reasons. And this has been a main argument that is now cornering the Prime Minister and his government. So I think that within that, for the, I would say, more systemic demand, it's also about the transparency, about collective ownership of the means of production. So this is more about also, I would say, a second or third level of demand here, because we've witnessed during those 2 weeks how, when things are being done openly, how there's transparency, how there's collective ownership, and how there's socialized production and geared towards real needs, because what we needed at that point was booms. So, and those were the real needs, and people experienced that, and people now want more of that, and we can imagine that for the whole country, if I might say so. Yeah.
Thank you, Stefan. Any other question, comments?
Please, thank you. Thanks to all the speakers and Patrick for your great overview. And Desmond, though you say capitalism is in disarray, which it is, how do we jolly well overcome it? Because it's immensely powerful. And there's so many countries in the world that are still following neoliberal capitalism as the solution, whereas it's the cause of all our environmental destruction. And today we heard on the radio the deputy mayor of Cape Town saying that the market will decide on the new developments at the waterfront. And so the market probably won't allow sustainable housing there. So somehow, but at the same time, we've had all these objections and riots in Cape Town when the city keeps dismantling people's housing. So somehow, and I would have hoped that we could approach our government as it tries to tackle this COVID, that COVID should make us realize we've got to live in harmony with the natural environment instead of just letting capital dominate our decision-making. Thanks.
Should I respond? Desmond D'Sa.
Yes, please go ahead, Desmond.
Thanks, Bishop, for that, for those few words. I think it starts with each and every one of us. It's the informal economy, it's locally based. We must encourage that. We have to take away the shipping, the control of the shipping mafia and this export and import model. It's failed all over the world. It's created more slaves than human beings. And it's put our people in worse conditions than ever before. So I think we must start locally, the local economy, the local informal trading, the local gardens. That's where it starts. I think, and until we grasp that and start to do that and encourage that, then these big things will always, unfortunately for us, and what I've seen over the years is these big market growth and the huge shopping malls. A lot of our people have bought into that idea, and I think we need to okay. So the more we get to understand that we start buying locally and move away from this concept that shopping malls and imports, the more better it is, the more important it's going to be for us as a society as a whole. If we really want to get the grasp of the impacts of climate change and deal with it, and deal with all these disasters, then the one way to do it is start dismantling them at the local level. And the more people start purchasing, using their power at local levels, the more better it's going to be. And I think herein lies is just, we can't rely on government. Government is going to allow it, but like we've seen during COVID, there's hardly any trucks on our road, hardly any ships into the harbor, because people stopped buying. People withdrew their buying power. They were scared to go and shop in big shopping malls because COVID is a killer and it's dangerous. I think we need to get to that stage that we need to continue to say, well, if we can, we have done it without going out. We have done it without moving away from us. So we stop the petrol, we stop the purchasing power, we hold everything and we build our community. We need to build the resolve at local levels where we build community and we know our power and we put back into our community because that will benefit us as citizens and society. And we'll stop petroleum industry, we'll stop those big genetically modified foods that have been sold in these big shopping malls. We'll stop our buying power of importing and bringing the stuff from miles away that's creating disasters in the ocean. People need to think big. They need to see this as a reality. They need to know that they've done it already and they can just keep that going. It's the end of the the big corporations. And I'm hoping that we can take that message back every day. Because if we do that, it's going to help the planet, it's going to help It's going to grow people, it's going to grow communities, it's going to grow families.
Thank you, Desmond. Marcia, please go ahead.
So thank you, Stefan, and thanks to the speakers. My question is specifically to our comrades in Mauritius. You have an advantage at several levels, apart from being a political movement in your own country. You've also, through the annual Schools of Ecology, created quite a big network within the region of activists and so on. And I'm wondering if this isn't the time now for us to look at how we begin to pull in all the movements and the activists in the region and begin to look at a common platform of action around this issue, and to put lots more pressure and build a process that can support your struggle at the moment. So I think for me, this is quite critical that we begin to look at that. And some of the initiatives that we're all involved in, I think the issue of the climate campaign that has been launched, the Africa Climate Justice Network, is another process that we should be looking at. How do we build together now to use this as an opportunity to begin to say no to the kinds of development initiatives that our regional governments are undertaking? I think the platform, the moment is right. Thank you. Maybe Stefan can comment, or Ashu can comment on that.
I will leave it to Ashok, but if he's not, so I can comment on it. Okay, I think what you're saying, Marsha, is yes, it's right. At some point, we were discussing also with comrades from the region in having because there's a reality between islands from the Indian Ocean, is that we are islands, and the concept, for example, of blue economy, all the fishing agreement that is being signed with European Union, for example, is being signed at the level of regional regroupings of, like, the COE, COE, which means the Indian Ocean countries, some of the Indian Ocean countries that gets together. So yes, there need to be a regionalized campaign strategy, and I think this is really critical now. And I think that you've said something, Mersha, I think, which is really important, is the pressure that is being put on our local government now is not only from Mauritius. It is coming from outside, and I think that having a campaign that challenges the petrol industry and also, like, challenges countries, governments that are, like, advocating for petroleum hubs and fossil fuel and petroleum industries as well, is a way of adding to the pressure at local level. And I think that there's something important that we've maybe not spoke about, is how did a country like Mauritius, being already under stress with the COVID, with many of the people not working, because over 100,000 people work directly or indirectly from the tourist industry, so they are not being able to work now because of the borders that are still closed here. and how all these has brought up the objective conditions for balance of power. Just to give an example, we were listing all the infractions, all the illegal things that we did on the waterfront. The list is really long because we did not observe, for example, under the Public Gathering Act, how we should like organize a mobilization or a gathering. We did not. There's a lot of things that have been contravened, and I think that because of the balance of power, the state or the police cannot challenge us on that. And I think that when we are talking about the balance of power, this is critical, and it comes from inside. And I perfectly agree with you, Mersha, that it needs to come from outside as well. And it's also a way of learning together from the different struggle and strengthening more our movements.
Thank you, Stefan. I would like to ask the speakers if there are any last thoughts or comments.
Would it be okay, Vola, for me, just it's Patrick Bond here, just to very quickly chime in. I can go on video if you'd like. It just means you have to allow me at the host.
Sure.
Okay, and it's really because Bishop Jeff has made such a wonderful challenge that I think eco-socialists have a special responsibility to respond to. What is our theory of change, our transitional strategy? What are the transitional demands that will get us out of this eco-destructive capitalism, including the big shipping that we've just seen go catastrophically wrong, the pressure on Des and the oil refining, but also the new oil drilling offshore Durban. And it does seem to me we've got a few very quick, just 2 minutes of examples. So if you want to regulate world capitalism, we actually do have one example where the UNFCCC, the big climate negotiations, should be learning from. And it's when the ozone hole was widening. I don't know if comrades remember that there were chlorofluorocarbons that we put into the air, from our underarm deodorants or refrigeration. And those CFCs were widening the ozone hole. And then in 1987, a Montreal, what was it called? The Montreal Declaration was part of a UN process that actually banned them. And that's what we obviously need to do for greenhouse gases, get to the point where we ban them, where they're just no longer a massive threat. So it has been done once before when the balance of forces and the ideology, the strength of a neoliberal market and corporate-friendly ideology was not nearly so powerful. It was the same year there was a Brundtland Commission on Sustainable Development. So capitalists were interested at that point in survival and in reforms. Apparently they're not anymore, but it's one example. What about other anti-capitalist strategies that have worked? I think the most impressive, I doubt anyone would disagree with me, is to get medicines that were a commodity for people living with HIV, costing over 100,000 Rand a year, $10,000 a year, about 20 years ago, meaning only a few thousand at best people, mostly white males, could get access to them. And when the Treatment Action Campaign campaigned for a much broader access through generics instead of the branded monopoly patented medicines, and they won. They defeated Thabo Mbeki and Big Pharma and the US government and the World Trade Organization, trade-related intellectual property system. They defeated one of capitalism's most powerful tools, intellectual property, that had been building up for decades. That gave the ability for this public sector and all across Africa to give free medicines. And in fact, that's raised life expectancy in this country from 52 to 65 today over the last 15 years, an extraordinary defeat of big capital, by TAC, its allies like Médecins Sans Frontières and the AIDS Coalition to Unleash Power and many other groups. Now, those are examples. We have Fees Must Fall, decommodifying tertiary education. We have activists on the ground decommodifying water and electricity through mutual aid systems of commoning these goods. We even have a nominal free basic services. In other words, there are little moments where you can see the social struggles building up and defeating the capitalist instincts. Whether we can get to the point where we can, at the point of production, where workers can take factories, where we can take states as socialists, remains to be seen. But I certainly think that in the meantime, these are extraordinary examples of the prototypes of an eco-socialism that we all need to be aware of and to keep expanding.
Thank you, Patrick. Any other thoughts from the speakers?
So thank you, everyone. Just to say my last few words is that, you know, there are many examples. We've got so many movements going on. We have the Black Lives Matters movement. We have movements, as Patrick has spoken about. And it shows once again, if we want to develop, we don't have the resources and the money that big capital has. But what we do have is people. And we must ensure to build a strong movement. Firstly, we must start in our own localities and then move up and probably continental wide, which I think Oil Change Africa is trying to do, is bringing people from all over fighting fossil fuels on the continent. And then we can move up internationally. We can do it if we all come together. We can dismantle their power, and once we dismantle their power, we then create a space for ideas that will benefit ordinary people. We cannot continue to be ruled by the 1%. Time that people took back their power and utilized their power for their own benefit, their families' benefit, their children's benefit, their communities' benefit, and the world over people benefit. I think that's the only way we're going to be able to win against these people. And we must not be, you know, we have all the strength and the stamina. And we must not be scared to take on those responsibilities. Because if we do take on the responsibilities, all of us, then I think we can create the world that we want to have and what our children will yearn for. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Desmond. Comrades, before we end the session, please let me ask Kia to share those videos with us if they are ready now. The videos from the Rural Women Assembly.
Yeah, thank you so much, Willa. We're going to try to share it now. Technology permitting, we'll do a screen share in a second.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Widespread damage to ecosystem, organs, and endemic species. This tragedy comes at a time of great challenges to the region when we are facing economic crisis induced by the outbreak coronavirus COVID-19. This is also threatening and endangering fish and other marine life already under threat from climate change. As Rural Women Assembly Malawi, our thoughts and prayers are with our sisters in Mauritius.
By the split of oil in Mauritius, and would like to send our solidarity to our sisters and the entire ocean protection movement. We know the ocean is life to the people of Mauritius. but capitalists have proven that they doesn't care about life, but care only about profits. And we would also like to applaud the citizens of Mauritius for providing alternatives at this time. Continue resisting and providing alternatives. Waluta. And we are very touched by the split.
Technology did permit us, and just at the end, like the sister said, aluta continua. I'm just going to go over to Willa to close us off. But once again, comrades, thank you so much for joining us, and apologies for the technical difficulties. It is what it is.
Thank you so much, Kia, and thanks so much for the sisters from Rural Women Assembly. Comrades, this discussion shows that the system is really malfunctioning, and this is the moment for us to come together and build on the work we have been doing. No more than ever, we need to think of mobilizing differently and building movements. Again, thank you so much for your participation during this session. Thanks so much to the speakers for the brilliant intervention. Hope we will have you with us in the next session. So thank you and goodbye, and a lot of solidarity with our comrades from Mauritius.
Bye, comrades. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Goodbye, everybody.